We grow our dreams in cellular layers, sometimes through struggle. And I would argue a good seed requires us to grow with it. I'm quoting from my Substack titled Clay, The Art of Conscious Becoming, posted on January 27th, 2026. Hello, I'm Lynn Morgan-Rosser. Welcome to Vita COLITUR. What would your days be like if you saw your life itself as a creative, artistic medium that you could shape and color into a beautiful expression of who you are and what you love? My mother used to work with clay. It became her favorite hobby in her later years. She loved calculating the glaze recipes and experimenting to get the colors right. She eventually got her own pottery wheel and a small kiln. A couple of times when I came to visit, she showed me how to use the wheel to take the wet blob of clay and use the foot pedal to start the wheel spinning. It was a lot harder than it looked. There's a real art to shaping clay, to thinning the walls and adding finishing touches. A lot more goes into it than I had imagined. Earth, water, fire, air, the alchemy of pottery, making the ground under our feet into useful things. It ties us to our ancient past, to human spirituality, and to one of the earliest practical technologies of human civilization. Clay was used in building homes, in making sacred objects, in creating vessels that could store resources. It was used in making jewelry, talismans, and coin-like tokens for trade. Clay tablets were used by the Sumerians, who impressed them with marks for the first known complex written language in history. Human use of clay began 20 to 29,000 years ago, as far as we know. It has transformed as a craft over millennia, from these earliest ceremonial and practical uses, from hand-built objects, to the modern electric spinning wheel and kiln in my mother's laundry room. As my exploration of clay becomes more abstract, I look back to its long history as a vital part of human life. I'm using it now as a metaphorical, practical guide to creating our lives as the ultimate art. So what if we could imagine our lives as being a medium like clay, something malleable and shapeable? And what if the word clay itself could define how we work with it? C is for clarity, defining our desires and who we want to become. L is for love, our deepest values, our why. A is for aligned actions, going from the abstract mental image of what we want and who we want to be into active creation. Y is for yes, our daily choices and what we say yes to in our lives in general. Clarity plus love is the equation for what, who, and why, bringing together our mind and our desires and our heart. Aligned actions plus yes equals our movement from mind and heart into embodiment. And just like learning to turn a lump of clay into a cup for the first time, working with life itself as an artistic medium takes practice, patience, a willingness to see mistakes as part of the learning process. And it also takes dedication to skill building over time. To explore this further, today I'm joined by Stephanie Winters. She's an international touring cellist, a resilience and well-being coach and speaker. Stephanie is in her second year of a world tour with iconic singer-songwriter Suzanne Vega, and she continues her work in the field of well-being. What makes Stephanie's work especially resonant with Vita COLITUR is how she bridges music and well-being. She's brought her well-being work to organizations including the World Bank, L'Oreal, and the National Institutes of Health, earning the NIH Clinical Center CEO Award in 2021 for her Quality of Life training program for staff, and the NIH Directors Award in 2024 for making remarkable strides in promoting staff well-being. She also presented at the UN General Assembly's Healing Arts Week in 2025 in her hometown, New York City. And I have a personal connection to her work. Not only are we friends from her time in Asheville, North Carolina, her multimedia project, Reflections on Resilience, was a collaboration with my husband, composer, producer, and engineer, Chris Rosser. For this episode, Stephanie wanted to use my clay framework of clarity, love, aligned action, and yes, to ground our conversation on creativity. You can learn more about her at stephaniewinters.com. Links to her website and her music are in the description box below. Stephanie has also granted permission to use some of her luminous cello music throughout this video. And I would like to welcome to Vita COLITUR Stephanie Winters. So thank you so much for being here today, Stephanie.
Thank you, Lynn, and I am honored, and it's such a pleasure to spend time with you, so thank you for having me.
Always welcome. Always welcome. You are an artist that I admire. I admire your dedication to your craft, and you also have this element about what you do that's in the healing arts. And so those two things combined are things that are close to my heart. So I guess I want to bring you into this discussion about clay in terms of how it is as an artist that you work with the idea of a clarity of vision and how that aligns with your values.
So I want to say I love this acronym CLAY, and I think it really does encapsulate this process. Clarity is this idea that we have a vision or we have something we're moving towards. Love, I think of as the sort of drive and the motivation coming from our hearts and our desires rather than something we think. And aligned action is where the rubber meets the road. That's where it really gets done. And I think that's where a lot of the challenges and the obstacles can either shut us down or create detours, or as you said, it's like if it's a worthy seed, we sort of overcome those challenges. And the why, the letter is why.
Yes, yes.
I just thought there's like another layer in there. And the yes is, just affirming every day that we're sort of, in a sense, having to grow into a better or more capable version of ourselves to get to that vision, to make it realized, to make it fulfilled. So I've just sort of restated my understanding, the way I took this metaphor you created.
Yes, absolutely. And I think of love too is in terms of our why. WHY.
Yeah.
of what our underlying motivations are, our deepest values, and how tapping into those might shape us in different ways than if we're thinking about strategically or whatever, that we might miss something that our heart truly wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could look at the concept of clarity. When you are wanting to do something creative, or you are wanting to move in a new direction or something like that, do you have a way of tapping into clarity yourself? How do you gain clarity and kind of figure out which way to go? Is it like active searching or intuition, or what works for you?
I think the things that have been most successful for me as projects is when it almost comes to me that I'm not trying to create. I might put effort into opening myself up to ideas, but I don't try to force the idea. It's almost like waiting for a tap on the shoulder, if you will, and then like there's a spark, and then figuring out how to get from A to B. It usually seems somewhat impossible, like how on earth am I going to pull this off? And yet there's enough belief or hope or naivete that we go onto the path and try to make something happen. And I would say why this topic is so great to have as a conversation between us today is I feel like I'm sort of between projects. I feel like I'm sort of waiting to get clarity on what my next move is going to be, what my creative form is going to take. Yeah.
Well, that's an exciting place to be, but also a place of you can feel a little lost too. So
yeah, I think getting comfortable with being lost is a really important skill to have. If you're going to be on an adventure, you can't know.
you can't always have it mapped out. Well, I want to go back to something you just said, which was that you open yourself up to ideas, or how do you do that? I want to know what you mean when you say, well, I might consciously kind of open myself up, but then the muse strikes you, the inspiration comes, the sparks enter your consciousness, and you are so moved because they align with your heart and your life. So what is it that you do to open up? Because I think that can be very key, especially when you're lost.
I think the clay model, if we go to aligned action, there's not a clear 1, 2, 3, 4 here. They kind of change order. And I would say the aligned action of being open is to have some time, maybe ideally each day, where there isn't an agenda, where there's an ability to be uncomfortable with oneself and let that settle enough that there's, some room for ideas to surface, to daydream, to look out the window, to notice the cardinals flying by or the squirrel or whatever is outside your window. For me, it might be in New York City more like a cloud.
Right.
But yeah, I would say the aligned action is being able to tolerate waiting and not knowing.
And that's actually still being on the path.
Yes.
It's not giving up. It's sort of waiting for the messengers to arrive. Mm-hmm. And it can be uncomfortable and disorienting a little bit, but I hear what you're saying. And you also brought in another element, which is nature. And in Vita COLITUR, it's both art and nature. Like there's creating our lives as the ultimate art. That's the acronym of COLITUR. And but Vita COLITUR in Latin means life is cultivated. So there's art and the creative imaginal act, and there's nature. So how do those two things play? I'm just curious in terms of waiting and being open and inspired.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's emerging for me in our conversation today is this idea that we want that sense of love and knowing and like desire. And then there's this kind of other side of the coin of not knowing and being uncomfortable and grappling with getting lost and confused in the process of becoming clear. I think nature is such a beautiful example of cycles and life force, and that the blade of grass coming up between the cracks in the sidewalk.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that there is a sort of force of nature that wants to express itself. And I think, we're not the first ones to say we can be a channel for that. And that's what artists almost are, is like channeling something into form.
Exactly. And that is really the whole premise of what I'm doing of Vita COLITUR in terms of practice, is that imaginal act that's tapped into something that's deeper and carries more purpose in our life. And then whatever that is, finding the path for that, finding the vision of that, being lost until you gain clarity, and then aligning with that and doing the hard work of bringing that vision to bear.
And it comes down to sometimes a lot of mundane tasks,
Yes.
Practicing the cello, getting the cello out of the case, rewriting the charts, checking the lyrics. If I'm speaking now as a cellist, playing with songwriters, that's where the kind of aligned action comes in, of making the mundane sort of tasks part of our to-do list and getting them done, so that it doesn't just stay in the imagined realm or the vision realm, and that it actually gets done. And that's a lot of times where the sort of personal resistance can kind of really kick in.
Yes, our brain, the default mode network in the brain, wants to just go and do its normal thing, and new habits are difficult to create sometimes. It takes effort to change it to doing something different. Yes. There's also something, though, that's very foundational about the mundane, about the we can reframe that almost as we're taking time to grow that seed.
Yes.
And when we talk about growing in cellular layers, that's kind of how I feel, is we're building the cells that are expanding and spiraling us up out of the earth. That's a slow, mundane process in some ways.
Yeah, I think about tenacity of a good kind, and even in us doing this interview, this is a vision you had, and but we actually did this a couple of years ago, I believe.
Yes.
And then you edited it, and then we went through it, and then we realized, really, like, us personally and everything had kind of moved on from 2 years ago. We decided to reschedule, but then that took several tries, and like, here we are. And that's the aligned action and the tenacity of just following through and, and getting it done. So I think the vision and the clarity is often the sort of honeymoon stage.
Right. It can be the fun part. The creating the DNA of the vision is the fun part. The work is in tending the garden, is in nurturing. And sometimes that growth is happening invisibly. We can't even see it. And that's, I think, the hardest part. When we're learning the habit, we don't see any results yet. Mm-hmm. And we're plugging away, and it's work.
Yeah.
And we're building those, but underneath the surface, things are happening, and soon we will start to see, you stick with it, and soon you start to see that things are happening. And I also was trying to do this episode 8 on clay. I'd written the Substack, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do an episode on clay, and then I'm going to bring Stephanie in here, and we're going to drill down on it, and that kind of thing. And I tried twice. It's why I haven't put an episode up in a little while. I've tried twice to make that episode, and both of my scripts, both of my efforts did not feel right. And so I kind of had to pause and what am I doing here? What is this? How is it not fitting? And reevaluate. And now it feels perfect because we can talk about it and work through examples on it and make it real and not so abstract while we're talking about it. So yeah, it is tenacity. It's like in meditation when we find ourselves floating off and thinking about our grocery list and then pulling ourselves back into that stillness to sort of see if we can go a little deeper into that. And then, oh gosh, the to-do list kicks in and we have to do that again. And it's just realigning that focus. And that's some of that alignment is just committing to the DNA of the vision, committing to realigning to that. That's my thought anyway. How does that feel to you?
Yeah, I also, what I'm hearing is the ability to discern when it's not aligned, even though every effort was made to align it, and being willing to let go, something that maybe took a lot of time and effort and even money and investment, and realizing when it's not a fit. And I think that's that kind of discernment and patience and what's the word I'm looking for? Almost standards that we're holding ourselves to that quality that we want something to have, and we do what it takes to get there.
Right. Can you show me or tell me about an example in your life of where you've had to sort of prune things that weren't working and realign and move forward and struggle with something a little bit? Because it is the struggle that can turn us away from our dreams.
Or make us feel, sometimes I feel like I'm not getting it right, or my process isn't good enough or something, and not recognizing that the discarding of different versions of things is the process.
Yes. That is not a failure.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever not struggled with something, and I think I am getting wiser, if you will, to accept the struggle and understand that it is part of the process. But I would say every single thing I do, I underestimate how much time it's going to take and how many rounds of refinement it's going to take. And so no matter how many projects I've brought to fruition, I would say I still underestimate the amount of work. And maybe that's that's the trick of the universe that gets us to do something. Because
I was going to say, that can almost be a blessing.
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss. Sometimes I've done things just because I didn't know how much work it was going to take. Like, oh yeah, I could do that. And, you keep going and you realize, wow, I actually have just climbed, at least to base camp on Mount Everest, if not tried to summit. And I didn't know I was even climbing this high at all. So,
and then there will be the gift of like something that allows for a leap of a kind, where something falls into place, or someone asks you to do something, and maybe it's just getting more comfortable, a kind of good normalization of that struggle.
Well, and I think too, there's some magic that happens in the process of growing.
Talk about the magic, Lynn.
The magic that happens when we align ourselves and we keep going. What you just tapped into was the sort of synchronicities that can happen. And I don't mean to discuss this necessarily in a woo-woo kind of thing, but it does seem that suddenly things line up where you meet the right person and you have your mindset such that you are open to making that connection, and that you keep going, or you maintain a relationship that later on is the perfect person that you needed to talk to about a subject that then allows you to go to fruition. Just these interconnections that, because we're staying aligned and because we're still growing this seed, whether it's our brain and our unconscious picking up on stuff that we don't have any concept of and making connections we don't know about, or whatever magic or mystery that is. I like to think of myself as a grounded mystic. I like to be kind of in the world of science, but also be open to the world of wonder and magic a little bit there. And it does happen that we encounter what we need to grow after we meet our struggle.
I do think this idea of clarity, that I do try to listen for what wants to happen and what signs are coming to me, what requests are being made of me. I closed my private coaching practice now. It's, I don't know if it's a year and a half or 2.5 years ago. And I'm deciding whether I want to do that work again, and if so, what form. And I keep getting requests from old clients. And I'm like weighing that, like, can I really deliver? What form would that take? But I would say that would be that patience of sort of waiting and listening for what wants to happen. And so it's that polarization almost of the synchronicity and the magic and the sort of things that show up without us trying, and then the tenacity and effort it takes. You really kind of need both. If it's just tenacity and effort, we're going to burn out.
Right.
It's really sort of being open to both.
And I think too, there's things that come for us to weigh. Like, it's a question: is this aligned with what I want to be doing, with who I am now? Is this something? And that opportunity is a question that only you can answer.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it, is that you've been asked.
Yes.
You can figure that out. Because I've had the same thing happen where things that I used to do or whatever have come back to present themselves, and sometimes it's like, oh wow, that's amazing, and other times it's like, no, I really can't do that anymore. I'm not there. That's not in alignment with what I want to be doing. It would take too much of me, or whatever it is. So it is that question. So you're in the realm of questions right now with your own path, and that's we don't always have the map. We don't always know what the DNA is.
I'm imagining our listeners out there saying, okay, so what do I do, Lynn and Stephanie?
Yes.
Like, how do I turn this into, something actionable?
So there is a kindness practice that I have that was my very first video. And I will link that in the description below. It is kind of a somatic and imagining kind of experience where you really get into the feeling of self-compassion and self-kindness. And that is an excellent place to start when we're trying to open up to what the universe wants to tell us that aligns with that deeper value.
And how long does it take?
It is quick. You can do it 5-10 minutes in the morning once you learn it, once the learning curve is done. So it's a quick and easy sort of way to align yourself with that value, and then maybe see
where it goes,
right.
What takes you. I mean, it seems like it's just a good thing to do every day, wherever you are in the process of creating and growing. Even if you're like, about to deliver, on a project, we always need that self-care and that self-love. And I think then the project resonates with that too. So
yeah, it's like that is one of the core things that flows through everything. If you think of that as always going to be part of the DNA of whatever seed that you're creating, whatever thing you're going to produce, then if you start there, then that's what you will be bringing in to your consciousness. Yes, that's what's going to resonate with you and attract you, and where you will be guided, so to speak.
So I remember when you published that, and I loved it. So I look forward to revisiting it. Thank you.
Well, one thing before we end, so I would like us to kind of wrap up with this idea of yes, because it deals with both daily choices and this broader question. So for you, I would love to know how it is that you work with yes in your life, what you say yes to and how that impacts, what you want to create.
I think this is such an important concept of what we say yes to. I'm getting better at checking in with myself and really being clear about what I feel I have energy for. And someone, a friend of mine said recently, I'm sorry to say no. And I thought, no is perfect because if you're saying no to something, you're saying yes to something else. So I just really think that's a moment-to-moment practice that keeps us aligned within the day, but also those daily actions add up into the long-term destination where we end up. That
Absolutely. That's the cellular layers again.
yeah, the inch in the wrong direction takes us, 1,000 miles out of our way over time.
Right. Exactly. So in terms of the broader general question of what I'm saying yes to in my life and how does that impact my vision and goals, which really kind of circles back around to clarity. We can ask ourselves that question. That's another way of gaining clarity. Do you ever get to that point where you sort of pause and evaluate things that way? What am I in general saying yes to?
I think on a kind of intuitive level, I do, but I think I'm glad you're asking that because I feel like it could become more conscious. And that's really the point of this work you're doing and these ideas you're putting out there is we're creating our lives.
Yes.
Every moment, every day. How conscious are we? So I think, if I were to kind of bottom line my takeaway from our conversation today, it's pausing and checking in and reflecting every day, really, as a practice, like this practice of awareness and consciousness really changes the intention and the quality of how we're moving through the day.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. So to wrap up finally, Stephanie, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your wisdom and experience, and it's just been really fun.
Oh, it's likewise, and I'm honored to be here, and I just support you wholeheartedly in doing this work. You're a beautiful artist, and I love your singing and your music, and I like that you're sort of giving us a peek behind the curtain of how you navigate life. So thank you, Lynn.
Thank you so much.
The challenge for this episode is simply to go back and check out episode 1 from 2025, titled The Kindness Practice, and to look at your own life through the lens of clay, clarity, love, aligned actions, and yes. How does this resonate with you, and can you utilize it to focus in on what you want to create in your life? Well, that's it for the first episode of Season 2. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Stephanie Winters as much as I did. Thank you so much for being here with me, and thank you again to Stephanie for her time and wisdom. And lastly, in just a moment, we'll end this episode with music from Stephanie's recording, Bach to Calm, which was used as the inspiration and entire soundtrack for the short film Reflections on Resilience, directed by Mary Cyr. It was recorded and co-created and produced with my husband, Chris Rosser. You can find a link with this music and other music in the description box below. I wish you all a beautiful, kind, creative time until I see you again on another episode of Vita COLITUR.